Now, how does this work during the backswing? Well, in the simple sense, if I were to make my backswing turn, I'm not going to keep my chest pointed down towards the ground, right?
So if you're one of these golfers that sees a lot of lean when you look at your swing, you're staying in flexion too much.
Yeah.
Your chest is down.
But Adam, I turned full 90.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the right? Well, not quite, right? I got
Right.
the turn, but I have the chest down.
Right.
Head moved way off the ball.
Right.
Odds of me getting back there to solid contact.
Not great.
Very not good. So what I would like to do from here is, instead of me going this, tracing a line down and towards the ground, I'd like to, as I turn, start to get this to trace kind of straight back, but then more up towards the sky.
Exactly.
As I turn. And so if I made a good turn where I stayed somewhat centered, right, I'm going to shift some pressure, but I'm not having a lot of body mass movement. As I'm turning, my chest and shirt buttons are just going to feel like they go a little more behind me or up towards the sky as I do my full turn.
And again, the benchmark is what you see, Eric, there, is if you see the upper back fairly straight up and down, the head hasn't moved substantially from where it began, you're doing it right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can tell you, if you don't get some upward extension of your chest, you will shorten your backswing, you won't get this right shoulder behind you as much, and you will really cost yourself some power. So it's very, very important you mix this in with the turn you're trying to make.
All right, guys, before we dive into this video, I want to talk to you quickly about two things. Number one, we have launched our golf school dates for 2020 in Bethlehem, PA. We're going to go ahead and put a link in the description down below. If you'd like to come get some in-person coaching, I would certainly love to have you. Now, if you can't make it to Bethlehem for in-person coaching, we'd still love to work with you via CogornoGolf.com. That's our online community full of golfers like yourself and myself looking to improve. That's where you can send me your swing. I can help identify priorities, take your game to the next level. Most importantly, as a member of Cogorno Golf, you get access to our Facebook group where you can post that swing, get into the community, get into the conversations. You get access to everything we have, all of the master classes, the member library, the practice section, as well as the quick fix section. Would love to see you guys there. Hey guys, we're here with Adam Bazalgette. Now, most of you I know have seen Scratch Golf Academy. What a wonderful YouTube channel that Adam has. But for those of you who maybe don't know who he is, the handful of you out there, Adam is a 3-time Southwest Florida Chapter Teacher of the Year.
Thanks.
He was a long-time coaching academy director, right, for Mr. David Ledbetter.
That's right,
Some people may have heard of David Ledbetter somewhere.
Everybody knows David.
So awesome guy, great coach. If you guys aren't subscribed to or watching Scratch Golf Academy below, we'll go ahead and link their YouTube channel in the description down below. Now this is actually video 2 of a 4-part video series that we're doing on hitting the driver farther. Right?
Exactly.
With less effort. Everyone wants that. And so in video 1, if you haven't seen video 1, we'll also include that link in the description down below, and we'll put a card at the end of the video. We talked about setup pieces that are important. I think in this video here, we want to talk about a couple of two backswing keys that are essential for hitting the ball farther off the tee with less effort.
Exactly.
That all sound good?
That sounds good.
So we're going to go ahead, we'll dive in, we'll show you guys these two important pieces. All right, guys, so let's talk about these backswing pieces to hit the driver farther. I think we have two key pieces.
I mean, you can't cover everything, but these are key pieces if you're going to hit the ball a long way.
Yeah. And so number one, I'd say one of the things that we would draw conclusions to, regardless of golfer, if I want to hit the ball as far as possible with a given club head speed and not have to have so much effort, backswing turn.
Very, very important. You've got to store energy if you're going to hit the ball a long way. I actually think it helps your tempo as well, because you know, if a golfer gets to the top of the backswing, the subconscious mind's really doing 99% of the work, and they sense they haven't really stored much energy up. They typically will jump at the ball and ruin their rhythm. So the tips we're getting into will get rid of that feeling for you, and they really make a big difference.
Yeah, that's a good point too, how it relates to the downswing
Yeah, it really
tempo.
does, yeah.
And so I would say number one take home here is bigger turn is better. Now it depends on how.
Right.
Okay, there's good and bad ways, but in a stock general 101, the more turn I can get, within some of the other factors we'll talk about, more potential distance. Is that fair?
Exactly, exactly. And listen, if you're a senior golfer and you say, oh boy, this isn't going to work for me, the most turn you can reasonably make is enough turn.
Yes.
So stick with us here, and the principles will apply whether or not you're super flexible.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some things we can do and little tips and tricks in terms of get more turn. But we want to say, and we'll get into drills in a little bit, we want to be able to kind of maximize our backswing turn the best we can. Would be part one. And then within that turn, when you watch golfers, the, we'll say extension, right? Which would just be when they make a backswing, is their chest more down towards the ground or kind of up towards the sky?
Exactly.
Right? And there's a range we want to stay within.
Exactly, yeah.
Of having a big enough turn with some extension.
You have to have some of that if it's going to be effective, exactly.
Yeah, and that would maximize our distance.
Exactly, yeah.
And so I think before we dive into the drills and how to feel this, let's take a look at how a couple great players who hit the ball far, how they do these things. All right, so let's take a look here at two of the best in the world here. Now, we got them at their setup position. What we want to look at is during the backswing, how they move. And in particular, we've got Dustin Johnson on the left. We're going to look first at the turn. Now, Dustin Johnson has a ridiculous turn during his backswing. We're not all going to get that far. But clearly from here, we can see these shoulders have turned much greater than 90 degrees, right? If I had a little line on the ground, that shoulder turn is way past 90 degrees, and he's got a lot of swing length because of it. If we look at Adam Scott on the right, Adam Scott does just about everything well, but in particular, we look at the top of the backswing, very big shoulder turn. Both of these guys going past the 90-degree mark. Now also notice, if we keep them at the top, if we were to look at where their chest is pointed, their top of the backswing, that chest does not point down towards the ground, away from them. That chest is pointed up and back behind him. That would be the extension part. So really good visuals here from two of the longest players in the world that we can learn from. So the first piece, right? Backswing turn. I think a really simple drill and fundamental for how we're trying to do this would be if I grabbed a alignment rod or a club and I took my normal setup position, and we went through the setup pieces in the last video. If you haven't watched that, go back and check that out. But for this one, if I just took this, Adam, and I put a little line inside my trail foot, right? And I took my club and I put this across my shoulders as a good reference point of, do I turn enough? Do I need more turn? How much turn should I have? Would be if I could try and get this club across my shoulders pretty close to that line that's on the ground there, right?
Yeah, I like that reference.
And so just as a kind of 90-degree, right, shoulder turn back here like this, that would be a good starting point where if I come up and my butt of the club is 45 degrees, I know, hey, I got to get my butt moving, right, and get myself back there, kind of the best that I can. And maybe even as a starting point, I'm doing a couple of these drills feeling, wow, my back is really more towards the target. Or wow, my chest feels much more back towards this camera. And then I put that in play.
Exactly.
Right?
And you'll customize as you do these drills. And again, not everybody watches these videos, if hardly anybody is 16 years old. So you have to decide for yourself, how much lower body movement will I allow that'll let me do that? What does it take for me to get the butt of the club over there? I think the key with that, though, is the lower body just has to be reactive to the upper body.
Got it.
You just don't want to move it too fast. One of the things, you know, a guy called Fred Shoemaker helped me with this years ago. He's written a couple of books, and he was saying that to a group of his teachers one time, he said, listen, you don't have to teach your body how to be efficient. It likes efficiency. So if you reach, for instance, up on a shelf for a cup and you can't quite reach it, your mind will naturally at a certain point begin to extend and start to stretch up on its tippy toes. You will not see a person reaching for a cup use their legs too much and then try to get their hands up. So make sure you're accessing that nice natural movement and just letting this, as I say, just letting it react in time in the way it should. So it's much, much better if you do it that way.
Got it. So if I take my normal setup, I did one or two of those drills, and I'll hit one first, and maybe we'll go through a couple of the small pieces. So I got that feel of what that feels like. My shoulders kind of to 90 degrees. For me, I get a sensation that my back feels more towards the target than normal.
Okay.
So I'm going to try and see if I can have that same sort of feel as I'm doing my backswing with a good backswing turn. And
well done.
What I would say as you go back to, and you mentioned something earlier, which is the timing element. And something I would say, Adam, that could help, and this is what I feel, is when I make a bigger turn, I need to feel like it takes me a longer period of time to make the backswing.
Yeah.
Right? Literally, like if I were to time it, if I make a backswing and I stop here, that's going to take me less time than it would if I kept going here.
And I would say it's probably fair to add, if you just kind of snatch the club back with your hands and wrists, you can do that a lot quicker than you can wind this up, or somewhat quicker. So a well done backswing, it's incorporating the pivot, does feel a little on the slow side or the deliberate side.
Yeah, and not like I'm taking forever, but it should feel like it takes a little bit longer if I'm making a full turn. Let me do one more. I hit that. Okay, let's try and do that kind of one more turn. So I'm feeling here, a full 90 degree. And as I'm doing that, as you mentioned, I love adding pieces in, right, to help the turn. If that means maybe the stance line gets a little square, are you okay with that?
Sure.
Right? Maybe a little foot flare.
I like a little foot flare. I think it's pretty difficult for the average person with their right foot boxed in there to really make a good coil.
Yeah, so maybe a little flare, 1 o'clock-ish. And then, you know, a little bit of freedom with the turn, as you mentioned, is I'm not trying to turn my shoulders, right, with no hip turn. I'm going to let myself go how I naturally would.
Exactly would.
And I even would see a correlation with a lot of people, Adam, between how their lead foot and leg would work, right? If their left heel wants to come up to help, I think we're cool with that.
Jack Nicklaus, Bobby Jones, not bad.
They did okay for themselves.
Okay.
And so we can recruit other things to help with the turn, right? It's not just shoulders.
And I would say as well, you know, you may say, well, okay, that's a few variables in there. Don't start whacking balls at full speed trying to figure out what to do. Make some swings away from the ball, make some pivots, map it out a little bit, get in touch with your body and what's working for you, and then start to hit some shots.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So I'm going to do that one more time. I got my feel of the club across my shoulders, and I'm going to feel like I let my foot come up a little bit, because that feels for me like it's easier for me to turn. And I would hit some, and we recommend all the time in the videos in terms of recording yourself if you can, right? Don't guess with these things. So let's go ahead and try one. Bigger turn on the way back. I'm gonna let my heel come up a little bit more this time. So full backswing turn, feels a little bit longer than normal. Heel went up.
Well,
and
that's a beauty.
Yeah, that's a better one than I hit before. And so just a baseline for the backswing turn to start with. You wanna turn within, you know, roughly a 90. Don't be afraid to let other body segments assist.
Exactly. If it's natural and it flows for you. And as Eric said, there's some little things with your setup that can help that as well, with flaring the feet and whatnot. Map this out a little bit in some practice. It's not that difficult to do, but don't just start hitting balls full speed and hope you can figure it out.
And if it doesn't work on the first one, quit on it.
Yeah, try another video and try something else. Don't do that.
So the turn part is the first one. Let's talk a little bit about the extension move.
Yeah, and I think, honestly, this is something I ran into a little bit more in the last 10 or 12 years. I mean, I knew what a good turn looked like, but I think this is a piece of information that if you're just thinking turn and you don't know anything about this, your odds of doing it well and effectively are not great. So let's talk about extension. What does extension mean? Well, extension is basically that, and this is flexion. So show us how that works a little bit there, Eric.
Yeah, I think flexion extension, I think a real good visual would be if you were just to have an object outside of your chest.
Yes.
So if this was like a flashlight.
This is actually how they measure it with 3D motion sensors. They have a little sensor on a K-vest back here, and effectively it's just projecting where is it pointed.
This line.
Yeah.
And so from the down the line camera, what you would see happen is as I go more towards extension, which is just a fancy chest more up towards the sky.
That's
so you see how this goes this way?
Mm-hmm.
That would be the extension. As my chest would go down, that stick would be pointed down towards the ground. Now, how does this work during the backswing? Well, in the simple sense, if I were to make my backswing turn, I'm not going to keep my chest pointed down towards the ground, right?
So if you're one of these golfers that sees a lot of lean when you look at your swing, you're staying in flexion too much. Your chest is down.
But Adam, I turned full 90. Wasn't that the right? Well, not quite, right? I got the turn, but I have the chest down.
Right.
Head moved way off the ball. Odds of me getting back there to solid contact.
Not great.
Very not good. So what I would like to do from here is, instead of me going this tracing a line down and towards the ground, I'd like to, as I turn, start to get this to trace kind of straight back, but then more up towards the sky.
Exactly.
As I turn. And so if I made a good turn where I stayed somewhat centered, right, I'm going to shift some pressure, but I'm not having a lot of body mass movement. As I'm turning, my chest and shirt buttons are just going to feel like they go a little more behind me or up towards the sky as I do my full turn.
And again, the benchmark is what you see, Eric, there, is if you see the upper back fairly straight up and down, the head hasn't moved substantially from where it began, you're doing it right. If you extend too much, you'll topple towards the target, your chest to be pointed up, and if you don't do it enough, you'll tend to move your head over this way.
Yeah, exactly.
And I can tell you, if you don't get some upward extension of your chest, you will shorten your backswing, you won't get this right shoulder behind you as much, and you will really cost yourself some power. So very, very important you mix this in with the turn you're trying to make.
And I want to piggyback on that, because that's so important. I wasn't even going to say that, is the length of your backswing is very, very much dictated by how much extension you have.
It really is.
If I made a backswing and I kept my chest down towards the ground, and I made my left arm go as high up as I can, that's about where I run out of space physically. And you can try this, right. Now, if I do nothing else but make my chest go up towards the sky, you see how much,
Exactly.
not only does the club go farther, but I'm also able to have my lead arm go farther.
Exactly.
Right? And so in terms of length of backswing, that's an excellent point.
It really, really stores power effectively. And again, you get the side benefit of if you're centered, if your head's pretty still, which in 3 dimensions, when you bend over, there has to be some extension to do that. Yeah. If your head stays in one place, it's easy to hit the ball solidly. So it's more powerful and much more repeatable.
Yeah, that's not rocket science, huh?
I wouldn't think so. It took me about 25 years for someone to tell me that from about age 12, but it's not.
So elementary level take-homes from here, 90-degree shoulder turn, kind of parallel to the line. As I'm doing the bigger shoulder turn, a little more shirt buttons up towards the sky than down towards the ground. Right, okay, good. And it's okay if I recruit some other body segments to do so.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna go ahead and hit one first. And again, I'm not gonna hit one, and if I hit it a little to the right, say, oh, this doesn't work, okay. I'm gonna record my swing. I'm gonna see what piece of this I need to do more of, right? Regardless of what it feels, be willing to exaggerate in the beginning. So let's go ahead and do one. Big enough turn, shirt buttons a little bit more up towards the sky. See if we can hit one pretty good here. And that felt like I did that pretty well on the way back. Now, if I was practicing here, Adam, I'd have my camera in front, right? And I think we need to beat this point home with this. I'd have my camera in front. I would watch myself. Even if I felt like that was good, I would want to be able to confirm that.
And I think not as good as a camera, but still effective. Now the sun just went in here in sunny South Florida, but getting your shadow right in front of you, it's got to be right straight in front of you. It'll give you a reasonable amount of feedback as to head movement each side, and it'll give you some feedback too. Camera's ideal though. Yeah.
So guys, 2 big pieces here during the backswing in video number 2. Talked about the setup in video number 1, backswing turn and extension. We showed you a couple of how good players, one of the best players, would do these moves to hit the ball farther. Now, if you didn't watch video number 1, we're gonna go ahead and put that up in the top left. I would like for you to go back and watch that now. If you guys did like the video, do us a favor, click the like button down below. Click the notification bell, please subscribe. Adam, thanks for having us out, man.
Good fun.
Appreciate it.
Pleasure.